Poor little baby Donald Trump desperately needs a safe space right now as his term collapses around him. But unfortunately for Trump, and to our great enjoyment, he's not getting it from the Fox propaganda outlet because Fox has been forced to talk about Donald Trump's Epstein scandal. But maybe even worse for Trump's ego, last night they were forced to reveal his health collapse live on air as Trump completely loses it and melts down. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into how Fox had to humiliate Donald Trump on air and revealed something about his cognitive state that is making him crazy, I want to start with someone who yesterday was asked about that very cognitive state and gave a bullshit answer. That was Carolyn Levitt.
One more. You recently said you'd check with President Trump about why he needs to get an MRI on his recent trip to Walter Reed. Do you have any more detail on that?
I do, and I'm glad you asked. As stated in the memo provided on October 10th, President Trump received advanced imaging at Walter Reed Medical Center as part of his routine physical examination. The full results were reviewed by attending radiologists and consultants, and all agreed that President Trump remains in exceptional physical health, which I know all of you will see with your own eyes later this evening when he opens up his dinner to the press, and perhaps you will see him when he signs the bill to reopen the federal government. So stay tuned on plans for that. Thank you, everyone.
It is no surprise to me that Levitt actually is trying to bring a little attention. In my mind, I think she is, to this health problem, maybe to move the media away from the Epstein scandal. But I think that we can talk about all of these things at the same time. They represent something that is key to breaking and beating Donald Trump's presidency, and that is his fundamental weakness. Donald Trump has lost 95% of the court cases, 95% of the lawsuits that have been brought against this administration. He is hemorrhaging Republicans in Congress who are going to go and vote to release the Epstein files. His MAGA supporters are furious with him for a myriad of reasons. This is not a guy who is all-powerful and inevitable and should scare us. This is a guy who is beatable. We know that, because he's breaking down before our very eyes. It's very obvious. The last time Carolyn Levitt voluntarily brought up information about Donald Trump's health was the last time the Epstein scandal was, I don't want to say popping off, but in the media as much as it is now. And so it's no surprise that she kind of shoehorned that in to try to maybe get people distracted. I don't know. But Trump certainly doesn't want her talking about it. He doesn't want even anyone seeing. We saw that last night during the press conference. Trump, 79, tries to hide chronic health issue in the Oval Office. Donald Trump signed the stopgap spending bill to end a record-breaking 43-day government shutdown while appearing to conceal a reoccurring bruise on his right hand. The House passed the measure 222 to 209 on Wednesday following the Senate's razor-thin vote on approval 2 days before. Signing the bill in the Oval Office a few hours later, Trump called the shutdown very painful and said the government would now resume normal operations after people were hurt so badly. As cameras clicked, the president kept his right hand partially tucked under the desk or hidden behind the folder containing the bill. Another trick to obscure his harsh bruising to his right hand is to sit with his left hand placed over the top of the right. He deployed this tactic throughout the press conference on Wednesday. At other times, Trump waved his hand freely or sat with it exposed, allowing photographers to capture his bruise. Trump deployed another trick too. He pretended to field questions after the bill signing before rambling for a minute and slipping out before facing a grilling over the last mutation in the Jeffrey Epstein saga, a batch of emails that were released on Wednesday by the House Oversight Committee. The 79-year-old ditched the makeup this time, opting not to slather the bruise in foundation, which has become customary of late. The caked layer of makeup was most recently spotted as Trump was handed a framed Washington Commanders jersey by the NFL's team owner, Josh Harris, earlier this week. So Dementia Don isn't doing too well, mentally, physically, emotionally. He's pretty distraught. Donald Trump hasn't posted anything on Truth Social now for almost a day. He wasn't allowed to take questions last night. He's barely been seen. I wonder if he cancels some of the events he has today. Donald Trump really just wants a safe space. Donald Trump wants someone to tell him that he's so fantastic and great. He needs someone to say, "Oh, Donald, we love you. We love you so much." But people don't. People don't right now, Donald. And you can't even go to Fox, because if you did last night, you would have seen Stephen Miller screaming, melting down. But not just that. you would have seen this fantastic clip of Sean Hannity losing his mind after Stephanie Miller decided that she would flip the script on him and bring up all of the worst elements of Donald Trump's decline.
Because you're anything but. All right, so I do have a question. I tried to get an answer out of you on radio. Okay, the question is, when did you notice Joe Biden's cognitive decline? And don't change the subject and deflect. When did you really notice it?
Well, I think it was through all of the times that Donald Trump has fallen asleep in public and talked about, magnets getting wet in the last few,
oh my gosh.
My mom had dementia, so I recognize it.
Stephanie, this is not, it's a very good deflection. You're a professional.
You know what
radio
else
talk
is
shows.
great
You're
about
very good.
Biden's decline is that Trump is all over the Epstein files, and I'm wondering if they're going to release those. Are you covering that tonight?
Not really, because the woman that apparently they're talking about is the one that said he was a gentleman and never did anything wrong. And the person that had a grudge was the guy that got thrown out of Mar-a-Lago 25 years ago. And by the way, when you get thrown out of a club in Palm Beach, Florida, that's kind of a big deal. And it's very humiliating and embarrassing. And he was a convicted pedophile. So I'm not exactly putting a lot of gospel truth in what he said.
Trump was mad that he was stealing his girls, but
We need more liberals going on Fox, and I will go ahead and volunteer. I'll happily go on Sean Hannity's show and say that Donald Trump has dementia, but everybody should be doing this. If you want to talk about Biden, then let's talk about cognitive decline. It was funny, Stephanie Miller in a clip that I played in a previous video also talked about Epstein, right? We saw that there was some photo of an activist, bowing down to Jasmine Crockett and being like, "You're so incredible." It was a funny photo. Maybe it was like a little goofy or a little corny. Like, who cares though? But Hannity, on the night in which 20,000 Epstein emails were released, said, "This is the story that we want to talk about, this Jasmine Crockett story." Stephanie Miller said, "Do you know what's so funny about that story is that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files?" And then Hannity he immediately says, "Well, Bill Clinton's in the Epstein files." And anytime anyone says Bill Clinton is in the Epstein files as an excuse for Donald Trump going forward, I want you to save that moment. I want you, whether you're on TV or in a casual conversation, to look at them dead in the eye and go, "Oh, so you think that being in the Epstein files is bad? That's good to know. We're gonna take that nugget right there, that nugget of information. We're gonna put it right there, and when the Epstein files are released in full, and when Donald Trump's name is in there fucking 20,000 times, we'll come back to the nugget. I'll take it. All right, so you remember when you said that Bill Clinton was in the Epstein files? You were kind of saying that that's bad, because it is. It's bad to be in the Epstein files. And now, but we already know Donald Trump is in the Epstein file, but it's confirmed. Do we still have those feelings, friend? Because that's what you're saying. When they say, well, Bill Clinton's in the Epstein files. It's an admission of guilt. Yeah, it's bad. Bill Clinton was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. That is horrific. Same thing for Donald Trump. We're not arguing. We're agreeing on the same point. You might be saying it differently to protect your MAGA feelings, but we're saying the same thing. And they seem to not understand that, because everyone who voted for Donald Trump is either cruel or stupid. But whatever, we'll help them figure it out. It might take some time, folks. It might take some time to really crack the case on that one, to get them to see the world finally. It's going to take some deprogramming, which Jen Psaki actually does in a really funny way and did last night. We opened the video with Carolyn Levitt. I'm going to close with her getting mocked.
What a day to be the White House press secretary. As you can imagine, Caroline Levitt fielded a lot of questions on the new developments regarding Trump's relationship with convicted child sex.
Caroline Levitt is just fantastically bad at her job. It is almost impressive, considering that all she has to do for a living is lie, and all she ever does is lie, and she's so damn bad at lying. But it just means we got to call her out, and we are going to on this show. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video if you stuck around to the end, or a blue heart in the comments. And if you want to support the show in another way, you could follow me on Instagram. I'll link it below, at Jack Cocchiarella. I guess some of y'all didn't know how to pronounce my last name. Not a surprise. A little difficult. You just call me Jack. It's fine. We're friends. We've known each other long enough. You can also support the show by subscribing to my Substack. I'll link both of those down below. But keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.